What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of Analytically Correct here at Public House, connected to Shamrock Liquors. Thank you guys for watching. We had a little bit of a weird schedule this week due to the hurricane and timing. I was out of town, but we wanted to make sure we got at least one show in this week before football season started, which is officially tonight. So happy football to everybody out there. We're going to do a little bit of a different format for today. We're waiting for Rob to get here, so we're going to go for now without him, and then he may jump in the middle. More time constraints and everything like that. But I think I'm going to start off. There's news going on with Zeke's contract, Antonio Brown, some crazy things going on with Antonio Brown right now. But I'm going to start off with just a quick recap of college football from last week. Just because I want to have Rob's take on both the contract and on the Antonio Brown situation, so we don't have to rehash it for you guys as soon as he gets here. So I'm just going to run through my take as far as what happened last week in college football. Not a crazy week overall. The only main takeaways that I had from it were basically that all the favorites kind of rolled. A couple of teams, my team, Michigan, we had a hard time with. The team that we shouldn't have had a hard time with, but we got the win. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, but teams like Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, all these teams kind of just rolled. So not a crazy overall week one in college football. We had a couple of good games, but the main takeaways I had, the best game that I watched was probably the Oregon and Auburn game. I was kind of rooting for Oregon. I'm not a huge SEC guy, especially with the way that everybody talks about it and treats them like they're no doubt, hands down, the best Power 5 conference. But Oregon was pretty much controlling the game, and then Auburn had kind of a crazy comeback. I feel like Oregon kind of, if you have to go like who won the game, who lost the game, I felt like it was Oregon's game to win. And then talking more about that game, everyone's talking about Justin Herbert going into next year as like a top 5 draft pick. And it kind of worked out the same way with Josh Rosen, where I watched him in college and I wasn't super impressed, and I'm obviously not like a professional scout or anything. But if you're watching this kind of a player and your team's drafting in the top 5 next year, you have to kind of wonder, he's going to be playing against NFL teams next year. So you want to, I know it's a team sport and everything like that, but if you're going to be a top 5 quarterback, you want to have more of like the Cam Newton type, where he has that crazy Iron Bowl around Thanksgiving, however many years ago it was. So if you're a Justin Herbert fan, or if you're a team that's going to be drafting in the top 5, I would be kind of nervous if my team is going to be the one drafting Justin Herbert. You want to be able to take care of Oregon or take care of Auburn, especially if you're up in most of the game. Whether you think it was the defense that choked it away or him, you want to kind of take care of business in that one. But like I said, other than that, it was pretty much just like favorites were winning. If you're a betting person, it just depends on whether they covered or not. Some of the crazy spreads are like 35 points, that kind of thing in week one. And then I alluded earlier to the SEC being like, oh, everyone thinks they're the dominant Power 5 conference. And it wasn't the major guys last week that lost or anything like that. But if you're looking at records and everything like that, if it was the Big Ten or the Pac-12 and they had some of the losses that the SEC had, people would have been talking much more about, oh, what's the deal with this conference right now? You had Missouri lose to Wyoming. You had Tennessee lose to Georgia State, who they paid $1 million to play that game. So you're pretty much, if you're Tennessee, paying $1 million to get beat by Georgia State. Never a good thing. South Carolina lost to North Carolina. Ole Miss lost to Memphis. And then we had, just like a couple of really bad losses. So maybe all the conferences are kind of top heavy this year. But if everyone wants to continue to talk about the SEC being this like Power 5, like juggernaut, like nobody's even close to them, I just think with the losses they had last week, it's kind of interesting. We'll see as the season goes on. I mean, like the teams that I mentioned, nobody's predicting them to win the SEC. Your Ole Miss, your South Carolina, Tennessee, Missouri. But not a crazy start to the college football season. Not too many upsets or anything like that. But I guess we can get into next week's games a little bit later. I had Texas and LSU, Texas A&M and Clemson. Those are like the 2 big games next week. Clemson played Georgia Tech in week 1, which if you're using like the old triple option, how they were in the past, it's kind of tough to prepare for. it can catch up, it can sneak up on some teams when you only have a week to prepare for it. When you're playing Clemson and they have the entire offseason to prepare for week 1, you're not really going to sneak up on them, and you're going to get destroyed, even with Trevor Lawrence not having his usual like awesome type game. I think he had like 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. So we'll see next week with Clemson against Texas A&M. They are at home. I'd obviously give Texas A&M a better chance if they were at home. And then you have LSU and Texas, 2 programs who I feel like are almost like mirror images of each other as far as like the coaching changes and how they have like the legacy and everything like that. That's going to be really interesting. I would probably give LSU the edge just for being at home. But overall, not too crazy of a start to the college football season. As we go on, you get into conference play, and it's a lot more interesting, obviously. I wasn't really too happy about Michigan. Everyone knows I'm a Michigan fan. You have to kind of take care of business a little bit better than that against Middle Tennessee State. But a win's a win at the end of the day. The news, I guess, of the day, Rob should be here pretty shortly. And I guess we'll get his reaction to it. So I won't really react as much. I'll just kind of break down what happened. So everybody knows Antonio Brown has had all this crazy stuff going on this offseason with not practicing. He burns his feet with cryotherapy by wearing Vans and not the proper footwear. That kind of starts everything off. So you're giving him the benefit of the doubt coming from the Steelers, and he comes to the Raiders, and right off the bat, you're not starting off on a great foot, so to speak. Pun half intended. I have never done this by myself, so it's kind of just like a continuous stream of thought, and we'll see how it goes. So, but yeah, not starting off on the right foot, so to speak, pun intended, not intended, whichever. And then you kind of have the helmet issue after that, so you're like, okay, this guy's kind of like stacking weird things on top of weird things. And I'm going to take just a second here to share the podcast on Facebook. But you have like continuous weird things happen with Antonio Brown. Nobody is doubting his talent or anything like that. But when you have these weird things continue to happen, it's like how often can I defend you? So the most recent thing was Mike Mayock, who used to be like a year or 2 ago, was just doing mock drafts for ESPN and then winds up the GM of the Raiders. Similar to John Gruden, he's just doing commentary and then they give him 10 years, $100 million. So we're already not 100% sure how well these guys are going to perform at their job right off the bat, how much experience. I mean, Gruden has the experience, but he hasn't coached in like 15 years. So that aside, you have Antonio Brown going somewhat crazy in the locker room. And Stretch and I were talking about it, especially after I describe, if you don't already know what happened today with the new controversy with Antonio Brown. But people are saying, oh, Mike Tomlin lost control of the locker room. I haven't heard that many people saying that about Gruden so far. So we'll see if he gets his apology. I won't really hold my breath for that. But to get into the new thing that kind of happened today around noon, and even when I told Stretch about it, he kind of knew about the social media. So Mike Mayock was trying to fine Antonio Brown for missing a practice and missing like some of the training camp. He was doing like physical therapy and stuff like that. So yesterday, the letter that Antonio Brown gets from Mike Mayock, he posts it on social media, and he posts a bunch of like weird stuff saying like the devil is a lie, everybody's gonna pay this season. I'm like, okay, well you already got paid, so I'm not really sure what you're talking about. But he goes to social media and posts that on there. Fast forward a day later, there's reports that Mike Mayock and Antonio Brown get into like a physical altercation at practice, and there's players that have to pull them apart. Now, this is just kind of like stuff that's like mildly reported. It's not like factually 100% yet. And you know how like the telephone game, like one person says they're arguing, the next person says they're fighting, the next person says they have to be pulled apart at practice. All that kind of stuff aside, you're talking about a player arguing with his general manager at a practice where we're assuming that Antonio Brown still wasn't practicing. But hang on, let me just share this real quick. I don't see it on here. Okay, here we go. Just give me 1 second. So you have Antonio Brown fighting in the middle of practice with Mike Mayock about something where you're not coming to work if you're Antonio Brown, you're not showing up, and you're not practicing. After you posted a private letter on social media, so obviously that's not good. And then about an hour or 2 ago, they're talking now about suspending Antonio Brown. And under the collective bargaining agreement, the players are only allowed to be suspended a maximum of 4 games for conduct unbecoming or conduct detrimental to the team. Another development after that is like, okay, maybe he'll be suspended a game or two, you know, just to kind of say like, oh, I'm Mike Mayock, I'm the boss. There's another clause under the CBA and in Antonio Brown's contract where if you're suspended for conduct detrimental, they have a way where they can void his contract. So now, not only might he be suspended, they might be able to void the $31 million guaranteed. Because before that, people are like, well, they have the guaranteed money that they're paying to him, so there's not really any way to move on from Antonio Brown. These guys are going to have to wind up getting along. So maybe you suspend him a game and then he just kind of falls in line, or it doesn't. Apparently, they have a chance where they could void the entire contract, whether he could be cut or whether he could be traded. When they traded for him, they didn't actually trade all that much for him. So it's kind of hard to see right now. We're just waiting like hour by hour when this whole story is coming out. But it was a $50 million contract for Antonio Brown, $30 million guaranteed, which, like I said, they're trying to void. So I'm not 100% sure. The only thing I know is for people I'm talking to, they're asking, is Mike Mayock, and Chase was one of them. I think he might be watching now. But he said, is Mike Mayock crazy for what he's doing right now? You can't really mess with the player's money. Well, if I'm Mike Mayock, I'm paying a guy, I'm expecting him to show up to work. He doesn't show up to work, so I fine him. And then he's going on social media with a note that was sent to Antonio Brown, or a letter, an official letter, posting it on there, pretty much making fun of it. I can see why Mike Mayock might be mad about him going behind his back or going in front of his back, in front of everybody, and kind of just disrespecting him in general and saying, I'm not going to pay for this or whatever. I don't know whatever job that you guys have. I can't just show up at work. And my take on it was, Antonio Brown can be mad about it. He can even argue with Mike Mayock about it. He can't argue with Mike Mayock about it in front of the entire team. And he can't just like put all the business out there and everything like that. You don't want people doing that to you at your job, or you're not allowed to talk to your boss like that. Technically, Mike Mayock is his boss. So it's going to be interesting to see as far as what happens later on today with the suspensions or with the whole voiding of the contract. Do they want to cut bait? Because like I said, they didn't trade a ton for him. I think it was a couple of mid-round picks, something like that. I mean, you would rather have Antonio Brown on your team than not have him on your team. But if you're Gruden and Mayock and you're trying to start this whole new, like, what do they call it when they're trying to start a new culture? You don't want a wide receiver, a diva wide receiver, to be setting the culture and being able, what's the next player, what's the next time when this player can go in front of everybody and just say anything he wants. So I'm not. So I'm kind of on Mike Mayock's side in that way. Like, you don't want to mess with a player's money, but if he doesn't show up to work, I mean, what else are you going to do? So we'll see as far as if Rob's on my side or whatever. But going into the next thing, I think that was like the news of the week. We had a couple of contracts. We had the Zeke contract. We had the Jacoby Brissett contract, which was a little bit surprising. We had the Jared Goff contract. So we'll start with like the least interesting, but still somewhat interesting. You know, you have Jacoby Brissett gets 2 years, $30 million. It's kind of like a vote of confidence from the Colts. They're saying, okay, we know we don't have Andrew Luck anymore, and we're going to believe in this guy. They traded a decent amount to get him too, but you're showing confidence in him, and I mean, at the end of the day, all you have to lose is money. But when you're talking about giving that, it's not that much money. You're talking about $15 million. Whether how that'll affect the Dak contract, because if he's getting 15, Dak's got to get something crazy. But I think people are kind of jumping off the Colts bandwagon a little bit prematurely. I mean, we had the weird Andrew Luck news and everything like that. But if you're predicting maybe Super Bowl for the Colts, you're losing Andrew Luck, but it's not just because of him that they're predicted to go to the Super Bowl. You have a pretty solid team around him. You still have T.Y. Hilton. You still have Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron. You got Marlon Mack. Your offensive line has been bolstered with Quentin Nelson, who they got last year. And the defense has been helped by a lot of the draft picks. So I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl, but I think the Jacoby Brissett contract almost says they're doubling down on, we're still in it this season. We're not just going to get rid of people or do the NFL version of tanking. So I didn't think it was that weird or crazy or anything with the Jacoby Brissett. The Jared Goff contract was, I think I had it at $110 million guaranteed for 3 years. So that one was kind of more standard. I think after the first 2 years that he's been with Sean McVay, everyone's kind of been wondering what would Jared Goff look like without Sean McVay? What would Sean McVay look like without Jared Goff? You're not going to really have to find that out. And if he's getting that kind of contract, obviously I think Sean McVay is involved. Some coaches are more involved than others as far as like their input and what players get paid. So, I mean, everyone's kind of like talking about Sean McVay as if he's like this coaching guru and everything. So if Jared Goff's getting that kind of contract, no matter what you think about him, Sean McVay, I think, obviously feels pretty comfortable with him as the quarterback. Obviously, they went to the Super Bowl last year. Whatever you think about the whole Todd Gurley thing or only putting up 3 points, at the end of the day, you're bringing back a pretty solid team, and it's only a 3-year deal. So at the end of the day, you're putting your window together with the players that you have, the defense, the running backs, all these offensive weapons, and you're just securing that. Everyone always kind of wants people to move off of these quarterbacks, myself being a Lions fan. People are like, how do you feel about Matthew Stafford? Well, I don't feel great about him, but what else is out there? I mean, I'd rather have him than Jacoby Brissett. The contract kind of makes it prohibitive and kind of takes away from some of his value. But the whole thing with that is just like you have Jared Goff for the next 3 years. That's pretty much your Super Bowl window because you're paying Aaron Donald, you're paying everybody. And we saw it with the Seahawks model. Once you start paying your quarterback and he's not on the rookie contract anymore, you're going to have to maximize that. So they're putting a 3-year window on it. They have one of the best coaches in the league, one of the best defensive players in the league, one of the best running backs, pretty solid team all around them. So as far as the Jared Goff contract, none of these so far I've been really that shocked by or even that interested by. It's just kind of like, oh, Jared Goff is getting the richest contract in history for a quarterback. It's just the richest until the next quarterback gets paid. You can kind of see how smarter teams and smarter front offices are doing it with the Carson Wentz contract and then now with the Jared Goff contract. The one that we're still waiting for from that like draft class, that time period, is Dak Prescott. And the only thing the Cowboys have done by waiting on signing Dak Prescott is kind of made it so they're going to have to wind up paying him more money depending on the years. Now, jumping off of Dak Prescott, we can get into the Zeke contract, which I kind of saved that one for last because to me that was like the biggest one. Everybody's waiting all off season for this. Other than the Melvin Gordon, that was like the running back holdout to watch. I think we all expected him to sign. The thing that kind of surprised me is you're Jerry Jones and you're a businessman. What's the point of taking this entire holdout through the off season when he pretty much got exactly what he wanted? If you're just going to cave at the end, why do you have to drag it out and drag the contract out through the whole off season? Zeke got 6 years, $90 million. He's going to be 30 when the contract is done, $50 million guaranteed, which that contract doesn't always like sound how it actually is, because after the year 2023, there's a way where they could cut him where they're not actually spending that much more money on him. Because if you look, I would almost guarantee it that Zeke's not going to be there for the life of this contract. You know, we've seen them move on from guys like DeMarco Murray, who are like threatening to lead the league in rushing. So they're not afraid to do anything like that. He pretty much, to me, got this deal because of where he was drafted. You can't just let him go and lose a 4th overall, 3rd overall pick. But after 2023, they have an option where they could cut him and not really lose that much money. The $50 million is guaranteed, so both sides kind of got what they want. I was just kind of curious, like, why are you going to waste our time with this whole off season and we got to hear you talk about it every day, and then you just pay him pretty much what he wanted? It was just kind of weird to me. But like I said, the dead cap money makes it where they can move on after a couple years. They're trying to maximize their Super Bowl window. That's what every GM and every head coach is trying to do. You're trying to maximize your Super Bowl window where you have the talent now, and Dak is still technically on the rookie contract. But we talked about this a couple of times. Why are you going to, if you're going to pay all that money to Dak, why does he need Zeke around him to make him that good? Why does he need Amari Cooper around him and all these other guys? They also, this offseason, gave contracts to DeMarcus Lawrence, Jalen Smith, and Lyle Collins. So they're definitely maximizing their window for the next couple years. It also, another weird thing about the contract that I thought is, you're paying everybody and you haven't paid Dak yet. Dak's only going to look better with all these people around him. So the way he looks this year is not going to necessarily be representative of how great he is as a quarterback. He's going to have all these great guys around him. If you really wanted to not pay Dak, you would have waited on Zeke and see how he looks, whether Zeke plays or not. You see how Dak does without these kind of guys. Now, if you get off to like a 3-0, 4-0 start, Dak's looking really good, you're going to wind up having to pay him the money that you wanted to anyways. So if all these things are affecting each other, Dak's going to look good, whether it's because he's a good quarterback or because he has all these weapons around him. So we'll see as far as that whole thing goes. We had all this other stuff. So like I said, tonight football's starting. So I'm going to go through the games. We're going to have, I'm going to do it more as far as the lines go. I'm not just going to like pick who's going to win the game or whatever like that. Dak doesn't have any rings. No, definitely not. But we'll see as far as that whole thing goes. You have tonight Green Bay, Chicago. I see Bowers is watching. Bowers is a Green Bay fan. I'm going to go through the games a little bit at a time and talk a little bit about each one. Who I like. I'm going to do it with the spread because I don't really like just picking who's going to win. It's not going to make it that interesting when you're talking about like Chiefs, Jags, or anything like that. But tonight I'm interested to see Aaron Rodgers. He's got a new offense with Matt LaFleur coming in. They're going to do a lot of play action. They're going to do a lot of under center, and he's used to being in the shotgun. So everything I've heard and read about it is Aaron Rodgers doesn't like turning his back to the defense because that's when you're getting information and everything like that. Bowers is a Packers fan. I'm going to pick the Packers. I'm taking the +3, so I'm definitely taking the points, but it's similar to last year. I'm pretty sure this is the same game we had starting last year. And it's pretty much, are you on the Bears side because you like the defense and you like the team as a whole, everything like that, or are you on the side of Aaron Rodgers? Because I think the Bears at home are an overall better team, but then on the other side you have Aaron Rodgers. So, I've said it before in this podcast, I think Aaron Rodgers is the best. I think he's going to have a really good comeback season. I think Matt LaFleur, anything is better than what Mike McCarthy was doing. So, anything's better. Just him not being there, they're better, I think. It's also tough to replicate defense, so everybody was on the Bears' defense because of how good they were last year. It's not always easy to replicate year to year as far as defense goes. Like, you know what Aaron Rodgers is going to be. You're pretty sure what Trubisky's going to be, whether he takes a step or not. But you can't just replicate exactly the same thing from defense as it was last year. I mean, you still have Khalil Mack, you still have all the good players and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it's still Mitchell Trubisky against Aaron Rodgers. And I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to get 3 points with it. If you know anything about betting and everything like that, pretty much the 3 points is just for the Bears being at home. They're saying these teams are pretty even. So for that game, I had Matt LaFleur written down. I had Green Bay's new offense, so we'll see that. The Packers are going to do a lot of play action, so that's going to be interesting to see with Aaron Jones. Obviously, you have Devontae Adams, who I like with all the crossing routes and all the scheming with the play action. So I'll take that. I'll take the Green Bay +3. You have Tennessee at Cleveland. Now this game is interesting only because Cleveland's in it. Tennessee is going to be a team that I'm not going to really want to watch that much this year. Have they said whether Tannehill or Mariota is going to start yet?
I don't think so.
I don't even. It's not good that they haven't said yet. I mean, I think Stretch is looking it up, but it's not a good. Whether they have or hadn't said it, if they don't even know who's better, that's not a good sign for either guy. So, everybody's the spread for that game is Cleveland at home -5. So, I think everybody's going to be on Cleveland. Everybody's going to be betting Cleveland pretty heavily. So, the whole thing is like the Baker Mayfield hype. People picking him for MVP. People betting on the Browns to win the Super Bowl. People betting on Odell to lead the league in receptions or receiving yards. And then you have Nick Chubb, who I love Nick Chubb. I actually like all these guys. I just think when you get all the hype behind one team, you're going to kind of drive the line up. So a line that maybe should have just been Cleveland -3 or even closer than that. People forget that Tennessee was almost a playoff team last year. Tennessee could have won a home game in Week 17 and they would have been in the playoffs. Cleveland was 7-9. So pretty much this whole thing is going off of hype and Cleveland being at home. And I could be wrong. Cleveland could easily win by like 3 touchdowns because I don't think Tennessee's that good. I just think Mariota, okay, so they said Marcus Mariota starting. But even the fact that it went that deep into the offseason, if he can't beat out Ryan Tannehill, who got traded away from a team that has a quarterback controversy in Josh Rosen and Ryan Fitzpatrick, doesn't speak that well to Mariota, who is also questionable pretty much every game of his career. So I would take Tennessee +5. It's never fun taking like a crappy team plus points, but I mean once you go up, you'll turn it in, you'll see red zone, and you'll see like, oh wow, Cleveland's up or Tennessee's up 10-0 on Cleveland. That's weird. And then you have the 5 points and you're up 15-0. It happens every week, especially in the first week. As far as gambling goes, when you're talking about the lines, weird things happen. We don't know how good any of these teams are, except probably like the Patriots. We know they're probably going to win the Super Bowl. But we don't necessarily know with all the off-season stuff, with the coaching changes, with the player changes, all the new offenses. I think half the league has new offensive coordinators or new people who are calling the plays. So a lot of these offenses are going to look completely different. So just give me Tennessee plus the points. I mean, it's fun to bet on Cleveland. Everybody's rooting for Cleveland. Everyone's got the fantasy guys on their team, all that kind of stuff. But if you're talking about where the value is, I mean, nobody's betting on Tennessee. I mean, so you're going to get a little bit of value there. Definitely an interesting game to watch, like I said, only because Cleveland is in it. So we'll see how that goes. I'm just going down the list as far as like times go. So if you want to follow along and kind of pick who you think or what you think the spread's going to be. But we have Atlanta at Minnesota. Two teams who I think people are thinking could either win the division or go to the playoffs this year. Atlanta's getting +3.5, which I didn't have that much written down for this game, honestly. These two teams are actually pretty similar, I think, to what they were last year. Whereas I said most teams have new play callers, most teams have all these different players. These teams are kind of running it back. You have Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman. You have Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Dalvin Cook, all those guys. I would give the edge to Minnesota on defense, and they are at home. But since it's such a close game, I would just take Atlanta plus the 3.5. I don't really feel that confident about it either way. And I don't really have that much on that game. We have Buffalo at the Jets. So Bills at Jets. That seems like a crappy game, but it's actually, to me, pretty interesting because you're going to have Sam Darnold coming in for his second season. You have Josh Allen coming in for his second season. Even just that by itself, you're going to see if either of these guys takes a step. You're going to have, I think the Jets are going to have a pretty good defense this year. So we'll see how they handle Josh Allen with the mobility and everything like that, which was a surprise to everybody last year. It's not going to be as much of a surprise this year. So when you have a defense like the Jets and you have finally like a year of tape on this guy, he's not going to sneak up on anybody. So are the Bills, it pains me to take the Jets giving up points at all, but they're only giving up 2.5 points, so you got to win by a field goal at home. I would do that. I also wouldn't feel that confident. I don't know if I've ever bet the Jets giving up points. I'm sure at some point I have, but I probably regretted it. We're going to have the next game, Redskins at Eagles. The Eagles are a lot of people's Super Bowl picks, whether it's to make it there or to win. I think they have like a really deep roster. A lot of people coming back from last year, a lot of new guys coming in. You have an early season divisional game, which always kind of makes me nervous. So Philadelphia is giving up 10 points. So Washington I don't think is going to be great, but it's kind of tough for me. Any divisional game where you're giving up double digits, it's always valuable to take the points. But I don't want to bet on the Redskins, but I wouldn't feel comfortable giving up 10 points. I mean, Carson Wentz still coming back, whether he can stay healthy or not. They don't have Nick Foles there anymore if he does get hurt. And I don't think Washington's going to be necessarily as bad as everybody thinks. They're pretty much getting an extra first-round pick this year when they get Geis back for the running game. People forget he was actually the second running back taken after Barkley last year. Now, I don't think that Darius Geis is going to be the next Saquon Barkley, but I also think it's a pretty valuable piece to add a first-round running back to an offense that kind of struggled at times last year. And you're getting the 10 points. You do also get with that Case Keenum, which is not something that you want. But that's a game that'll be interesting to watch, I think. Early season divisional games tend to be closer. I mean, any kind of divisional games tend to be closer, but you're going more off of hype when you're giving up 10 points for Philadelphia than you normally would be in just if it's week 6 and we see that Philadelphia is 6-0, I'd be much more comfortable giving double-digit points in a divisional game. But you always have those weird games every year where, like, the Dolphins will beat the Patriots, or, like, even the Giants this year. I think we'll see people are predicting them to be pretty bad. But I think we'll see the Giants upset a couple teams just because it's a divisional game and they're at home or whatever. Could get to that later on. I think, Dallas plays the Cowboys. Dallas plays the Giants. I'm not necessarily going to be picking the Giants, but any of these divisional games, it's not fun to bet on shitty teams, but if you're getting the points, it's kind of weighs out at the end. That the stats bear it out that these games tend to be close. You can always get a backdoor cover. So we have Rams at Panthers. That actually is going to be like one of the most entertaining games. I think I watch a lot of Red Zone. I don't have necessarily one game on at a time or the other. I don't know who this is.
Rob.
I'm not good with last names. Hi. But so Rams Panthers I think is going to be entertaining just from the fact all the offensive firepower. You have a team that was in the Super Bowl last year. Cam Newton recently said, and I don't know whether to take this as a good thing or a bad thing. Cam Newton said, "I feel like a rookie again." Now, rookie quarterbacks, I understand what he meant. He meant it in the sense of his injuries and everything like that. Whether you believe him or not, that's a whole different story. But if Cam Newton is 100% healthy, I love the Panthers team. I mean, you have Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore. The offense, I think, is going to be really good. You always have Riverboat Ron, who's willing to go for it in any kind of situations. But for this game, it's Rams -2. I'm not as worried about the west to east travel. That's usually a big thing in the middle of the season when teams have short weeks to prepare and other kind of things like that. But I'm pretty sure they're not going to get there 2 days before the game, or even their normal week before the game, or however many days it is. So I'm not worried about the travel as much for the Rams, and I'm not sold on Cam Newton being healthy. I know what he's saying, and he's saying all the right things, but it was like a week ago that he was projected to be questionable for this game. So it's Rams -2. I don't like laying points on the road, but I think I would take the Rams in that one to win by a field goal. If Cam's not healthy, I definitely think it would be at least 6 or 7 points. So it's going to be interesting to see. Everyone's kind of down on the Rams this year for some weird reason. You have a team that's coming off the Super Bowl. They're bringing back most of their players. The defensive line is loaded. They still have Aaron Donald. Did they bring back Ndamukong Suh?
Rams?
Yeah.
No.
Where did he go? Did he go to the Ravens? Forget where he went, but be that as it may, they still have Ndamukong Suh. They have a pretty loaded defense overall, and they were just in the Super Bowl. So to only be favored by 2 points, I know they're on the road, but like I said, with the whole travel and everything like that, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Rams on that one. You can write these down at home and then tell me next week when I go 6-10. He's on the okay. So yeah, he pretty much traded. He's on the Bucs now, so he pretty much traded spots with Gerald McCoy. But Kansas City and Jacksonville, that will be the next game. Jacksonville's getting 3 points at home, which some people might look at it and be like, oh well, Kansas City's only giving up 3 points and it's to Jacksonville. I think it might actually be smart to take Jacksonville plus 3. I don't know if I'll do it or not, because betting against Patrick Mahomes is not something that you're going to make a ton of money doing. But I think the defense and the whole team is going to be underrated this year. I mean, they have Nick Foles now. The best thing you can do in the NFL is go from having an average quarterback or a bad quarterback to even just an above average or average quarterback. So I think the Jags, if you go back 2 seasons, they were a playoff team. Teams are looking at them like that defense could take them to the Super Bowl. They're not going to have to drag Nick Foles through games anymore. Nick Foles is a guy who could actually come in and win you some games. They are at home. Whether the Jacksonville home advantage is as much as other stadiums, I don't know how debatable that is. I think it's just one of those games where it's like a classic Vegas game where it's like, oh, look, the Chiefs are only giving up 3 points, and they're just like begging you to take the Chiefs -3. And I can just see a weird game where Kansas City kind of like grinds it out with Fournette, and the defense keeps them in it, and they win like 21-20 or something like that. Now, if Jacksonville's defense isn't as good as we think it's going to be, and it winds up being a shootout, I mean, forget it. I could definitely see the Jags losing by like 21 points if Patrick Mahomes is able to just do what he wants to do. They don't have Kareem Hunt this year, kind of switched out for Damian Williams. So we'll see how that whole thing goes, but I wouldn't be too crazy, I think. If you want to take Jacksonville, I don't even know if I would take the 3 points, because if it's going to be a close game, I'd rather just take the money line, which is pretty much just, if you don't know, it's foregoing the points and you get a little bit better of odds. It's not something I'm going to do, but I would kind of be careful if you're going to put a ton of money on Kansas City, or if you're going to put them in a parlay. There's always that weird team that kind of comes in and screws everything up for you. And it's always the team that you're not expecting either. So that's just kind of how I feel about that game. Definitely going to be a fun one to watch, though. You're going to have Tyreek Hill against Jalen Ramsey. That's going to be fun to watch. You're going to have Jacksonville linebackers against Travis Kelce. So it's pretty much like offense versus defense. Definitely want to be one of the games that I'm going to be hoping to watch a lot of. Probably a good fixture of Red Zone. Then we're going to move on to Indianapolis at Chargers. Like I said earlier, I think everybody's kind of jumping off prematurely of the Indianapolis thing with the whole Andrew Luck news, all that kind of stuff. You have to be careful when all the public is going one way and everybody's all loading up on one team. The Colts are getting 6 points. They're on the road, but everyone knows the Chargers play in like a 30,000 seat soccer stadium, so that's not even a real home field advantage or anything like that. Like I said earlier, the Colts team, even without Luck, they have a solid offensive line. The defense has gotten a lot better. I still feel comfortable with Marlon Mack and T.Y. Hilton. So I think I would definitely take the 6 points in that one. And just a common theme would be early in the season, taking the points. You don't know how good any of these teams are. You could be possibly getting points with a team that's actually the better team. We're just kind of going off of what happened last season and basing it on what's going to happen this season. I mean, Melvin Gordon's still holding out. A lot of people know if you're playing fantasy. With that whole thing, everyone's kind of hoping for him to get traded right now. I'm one of them. I kind of want him to get traded to the Falcons, but it's for what the Chargers are asking, it seems like they're allowing him to seek a trade, but it seems like they actually don't want to actually trade him. So this is one where a common theme, I'll take the points, or I'll take like small favorites, like 3-4 points, whatever. This next one is Seattle and Cincinnati. It's Seattle -9, and I have no problem if you want to give up 9 points with Seattle at home. One of the best home field advantages. First game of the year. The fans have been waiting for football all off season, so you're going to have like a crazy fan base. I think this is a 4 o'clock game, so you're going to have people drinking all day. And then on the other side, you have Cincinnati, who it's not a crazy pick to say they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Nobody thinks Andy Dalton's good. A.J. Green's not going to be there. The offense is going to be terrible. I don't even know who they have on defense anymore. And I would have no problem if you want to give up 9 points. Even if you want to do, there's teaser bets. If people don't know, you can change the line by 6 points. So if you want to tease it down, maybe Seattle's only giving up 3. I definitely feel good about that as well. Yeah, so they have the great home field. Cincinnati could be the worst team. I think them, the Giants. I don't think the Redskins are going to be as bad as people thought. The Lions and the Cardinals is coming up soon. As far as like the list goes, that could be terrible. Chase said Bears or Packers tonight. I think I talked about it like right at the beginning. If you missed it, if you just came on, it's basically this boils down to this for me. You're either going with the Bears defense. I mean, nobody's going with the Bears because of Trubisky. You're going with the Bears defense. You're going with the running game, and you're going with the home field advantage. And you can take all that, and at the end of the day, I'm going to take the points. It's plus 3 points. So I'm going to take Green Bay plus the 3. I think you're going to have Aaron Rodgers plus points. We also, Rob just got here. Looks like he just got a haircut.
No, I'm not.
No, you're good. I've just been kind of rambling on. I'm going down the spreads and everything like that.
AB suspension, you hit that one yet?
Yeah, I started with that kind of stuff. We can go back over it if you want, though. It seems like some people might have just joined. So I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick. If you want to just go and hit, I had a couple of these things. I had the Zeke contract, a couple of these other ones, Jacoby Brissett, Jared Goff, and whatever. But if you want to hit the AB suspension and the Zeke contract, then I'll be right back.
No doubt it out. But definitely the Zeke contract, man. Now we are having that new transition into running backs, and our running backs going to get signed, and it starts killing the Melvin Gordon trade aspect, I think, of everything now, because with Melvin now obviously getting into his contract here and trying to get traded, you have a lot of guys that are looking into things, and you have other teams. I always thought the best team for Melvin to be with would be Atlanta. With Devontae Freeman's contract kind of dying out and his money, they'd be able to get rid of him. He's on the back end of his contract. I think him in Atlanta would work out a lot better than Freeman ever worked out with. Devontae Freeman had his breakout year, but after that, things slowed down. He's never been as productive. His production has gone down each and every year since then. And also, Melvin's just great for that offense. You know, we can have Julio, Calvin, Sanu. Then you can have Melvin over there with Matt Ryan. I could see if that trade happens. But I do want to keep an eye on what's going to happen with Oakland. If it's Oakland, who are they going to trade Antonio Brown for? Because Antonio Brown, I think, is on his way out. If I was to really look at it, I really think AB is on his way out of Oakland. I don't think it's going to be sticking around. I think that dream scenario with them and what they thought, they realize that it's gone. And I think a lot of people need to appreciate Mike Tomlin a lot more now for being able to keep.
He said people owe Mike Tomlin.
No, they do, because everyone killed Mike Tomlin for everything. But at the end of the day, it's like Melvin going to Green Bay would be an awesome decision too. But the problem is, and I think that'd be one of three places I thought him and Green Bay, Tampa, or Atlanta would be the best three for him to be in. I don't know though if the offensive scheme is going to work on that. I just think the offensive scheme for what the Falcons already do, and if they had Melvin Gordon, it'd be the perfect fit for him. But obviously, I mean, Philly went after him, sending they wanted to swap third-round picks and send in which running back was it? Jordan Howard.
Yeah.
Jordan Howard.
Well, they were talking about swapping 7th-round picks, which was kind of insulting if you're Well, the Chargers, what I was saying is they kind of want they want to say that they're allowing him to seek a trade, but for what they're asking for him, it's almost like they don't want it to happen.
No, and they know they're not going to be able to trade him too, because the fact that no one's going to buy into that, and what he's, especially with the fact that Zeke just signed his contract, people don't know. Like, Melvin Gordon's not a top 5 running back. When you really look at all the running backs, he's not. And so for him to get paid accordingly, I think it's going to be a very tough thing for him to kind of swallow and understand. It's like, because between Saquon, Kamara, McCaffrey, Zeke, and
Todd Gurley.
Yeah, Gurley. I'm over here, and then you have the David Johnsons. I mean, you just have other running backs now. It's starting to become, Melvin's a solid back. He can do a lot of things, but he's never been like this premier back is my thing. He's been a great fantasy running back, but like, you don't get paid off of fantasy football.
Yeah, he has injury history too.
Yes.
I think he's a really good fit for a team that is like one piece away. Like we can afford to trade away our 1st-round pick, because if we get this guy, it's the missing piece we need for the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I said it kind of like jokingly, just because they just did draft Josh Jacobs. But what if they just traded him straight up for Antonio Brown?
And you know, to be honest with you, I wouldn't. I think that's a thing that could really happen here soon, because both are very dysfunctional. You could see one guy obviously wants to play, but you know, he's just waiting on that money that he's just not going to see. Because what's the money now that Melvin wants is my question. Because to be paid in the top 3 running backs, you have your I didn't even say Le'Veon Bell when I was naming running backs. Another running back we can put ahead on there.
It's weird too, because it's like it says that he asked for 10, but he wants to be somewhere in between. Like, so you're arguing over $2 million. Like they already offered him 10. You're arguing over 2. You're not going to play because of $2 million.
And I was one of those guys in fantasy football the year that did take Melvin. I got him in the 4th round on one team, because I was just like, you know what? He's going to play eventually.
Yeah.
I would be very shocked to be in, because everyone forgets when Le'Veon didn't play, he was already franchise tagged one time. He already got paid some good money, and he could afford to. Melvin's never been tagged. He's never seen that kind of money yet to where he can sit out and just be like, yeah, I'll just collect, because it's just, when Le'Veon was doing what he was doing, he still made less money when he came to the Jets. And Le'Veon was always, like, he was the premier back at that time. I mean, he was the best back when he was in Pittsburgh. He was unbelievable in doing everything. He could do everything. And also, he doesn't go straight to contact. He'll fall down and get away from contact and protect himself, which you don't see running backs do.
Melvin Gordon's one of those backs who kind of runs to contact.
Yes,
Ezekiel,
Saquon. Yeah, exactly. Those guys will go do that. So that's why when I was seeing, with everything that's going on with Melvin, San Francisco's a big question as well because McKinnon's on the IR. Can that happen? They have money to spend, and McKinnon's on his. If they cut him, they won't lose money next year. All the dead money is now gone. So that there's a couple teams that I can see happening. I just think that they're going to let them. Teams are going to see how much they really want it. I mean, it's week 1. Right. We're going to see by week 3, I think he's on the field.
Yeah, people are kind of like, all right, we're going to go into the season with what we have. I mean, it is running back. You're going to have people get hurt. There's going to be like some big profile guy who we're not expecting that goes down with some kind of an injury or something like that.
That includes their own running backs.
Exactly, yeah.
Austin Eckler's not this big, tough guy. I mean, I get it, he does catch passes, but we've never seen Eckler take on this big role as well as their other backs. I mean, if one of their backs get hurt, what are you going to go do next now? Because, I mean, you already have that. I thought the number one thing they should have done, and the only way the Chargers would have gotten past Kansas City is if you would have traded him for Jadeveon Clowney. Because you need Ingram, Clowney, and Bosa to go after Mahomes. The only way you're going to beat the Chiefs, you're not going to offensively beat them. You're going to have to beat them up at the front, and you're going to have to really get after the quarterback consistently.
On paper, I didn't even think about that, but that could have been, especially for what they gave up to get Clowney that Seattle did. They definitely could have done something like that, and now you're asking for a first-round pick and then like a fifth-round pick. I would almost rather, like you said, if you're trying to keep up with Phillip Rivers' closing window and you're trying to keep up with Kansas City, you give up Melvin Gordon, who obviously you don't want to pay anyways. Yeah. You give him up, and then you get Clowney. That defensive line on paper, like you said, Ingram, Bosa, and then Clowney. You could just put any of those guys anywhere you want. You could just run a 3-4 almost.
And it's just, you can just go out and they can do what they need to do and get after the quarterback. It's the only way you're not going to be offensively be able to keep with Kansas City.
Right.
But to stop them, you saw what Flores did when he was a DC over at New England last year. Did they score? They scored, 28 points with an extended game. But at the end of the day, it was like they were averaging 30 plus. You have to have a great front to go after them, and you have to make him uncomfortable. If you don't make Mahomes uncomfortable, he's going to light you up all day.
It kind of ties in. I was going through the list of like the spreads and everything and who I liked in each game, and I was just one of the last ones I was talking about was Kansas City against Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's a tough one, I think.
It's Jacksonville +3, and I was saying you're almost better off taking Jacksonville on the money line because if Jacksonville keeps it close, that's the only way they're going to win is if they keep it like a 21-20 game. They're not going to win like a 35-28 game. I know Nick Foles is definitely better than what's his name, Bortles.
Yeah.
But he's definitely not going to win a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. So like you said, if the Chargers are trying to have like success against their in-division rival, and you trade Melvin Gordon and you get Jadeveon Clowney, which I hadn't even thought of. But if you do that, you're much better off like keeping it close with Kansas City. Especially if you wind up in like a wild card game or something like that. Where were you on the whole Antonio Brown?
The thing with Brown is just like when you really look at it, it's like Mayock's done with it. It's like, Mike, did you not do this? My thing with Oakland, and you know what? They're just this dysfunctional franchise. With number one, you hired John Gruden. The guy hasn't been a coach in years. I mean, when you miss 10 years of coaching, that's like 2 decades in the NFL because he's now. I mean, they got past the whole spread. We're past the whole spread era, going to RPOs now. And he was back when, you were just I formation under center. How many quarterbacks really take the snap under center anymore these days? I mean, that's just not a thing. The only reason why Dak Prescott does is because they have to run the ball north-south with Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
Other than that, if he didn't have Ezekiel Elliott, he would be like he was at Mississippi State. He would never take snaps under center.
Right.
It's like, so now he was so far gone, and they give him ownership stake. They give him guaranteed money. They give him too many years. Now you have Mike Mayock, who, he's a GM, but it's like, Mike, did you not realize that Brown would be an issue? Did you not do your homework? Did you not talk to other GMs? Like, that's stupid. That's typical Oakland Raiders right there. It's like, they're not, like, it's just dysfunction consistently. And if Antonio Brown goes somewhere else, I would be shocked, to be honest. I don't know how much of his value is really going to be there and how many teams are going to deal with it because there comes a point where Randy Moss even teams didn't want to deal with him anymore. There came a point where teams didn't want to deal with Terrell Owens, Chad Johnson. All 3 of those guys are a lot better than Antonio Brown. I mean, just maybe not Johnson, but I know T.O. and Randy are. It's just from that standpoint, it's like the whole diva wide receiver thing is coming out to be like, do we need to deal with that now?
Yeah.
It's more and more.
Have you heard what they're trying to do as far as like voiding his contract and
So he
everything
doesn't
like that?
guarantee money.
It was kind of like a surprise earlier in the day. It's like, okay, maybe they'll suspend him for a game or two. And now they're talking about, well, if he's suspended, there's something in his contract where they could void the guaranteed money. And then they could just, I mean, they obviously don't want to cut him, but I was saying earlier, they didn't trade that much for him.
No, I think it's worth just getting rid of it.
If they just want to cut their losses, I mean,
because
I don't even know who their number one receiver would be after
Tyrell
that,
Williams,
which is not great.
but I mean, did we really? And I'm not trying to be rude to Oakland, but like Oakland's still like, when you look at that team, do you ever think with Brown that they were going to be the number one team in that division? I mean, you still
No, they're not going to win anything this year regardless.
Let's do it. We need some help. Let's do it. I just, my biggest thing when it came to Brown and now what he's going through, it's like he doesn't want to play anymore is what I really think it is. And when he does, like, it's always something with him. He's just this, like I said, and you said earlier that I wasn't here for people to not appreciate Tomlin and the Pittsburgh franchise for keeping a lot of things in-house, keeping a lot of things quiet, and just for Tom to be able to keep him in check, I think needs to be respected more. The fact that, yeah, he had to deal with this for a lot. I mean, I'm sure early in Antonio Brown's career, before he became who he was, it wasn't nearly as bad. But now that he is who he is and his status is, and he has the clout and all this and that, it definitely is starting to, get to him. You can just see, whether it's the frostbite thing, the helmet thing, it's just get out there and play. And he's not even doing that anymore. And I just think this needs to be done. Like, they just need to do what they can to get rid of him and be done with it.
It just has Patriots written all over it, to where they just cut him and the Patriots pick him up, and then their wide receivers are Julian Edelman, Antonio Brown, and Josh Gordon.
Jesus Christ, dude.
They just go 16-0 again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, and maybe Antonio Brown, needs a, and that's what I think more than anything else. Antonio Brown can't be the best player on a team because you don't need him to have that kind of, you know what I mean? You don't need like that kind of guy to have that kind of ego and mindset with it. It's just.
When's the last time that a receiver was on the best player on any Super Bowl team?
Yeah, it's like it's on a Super Bowl team. That's really questionable. I mean, you could, because Matt Ryan, when they went to the Super Bowl, won MVP that year. I mean, you can argue Julio was great, this and that. Obviously, he was, but it was just more the fact that I'm offering Rodgers. But you just don't look at a receiver such as that. I think if they can get rid of him at all, I'd be shocked because I don't think a team's going to trade for him. I just don't think any team will be willing to trade and deal with that. It's going to be, like you said, a free agent signing. Because if he's a free agent, he's going to get signed. It's almost crazy to say no other team in the NFL, 30 other teams in the NFL would not sign him outside of Pittsburgh and Oakland.
Right.
And who knows with Pittsburgh? Maybe Pittsburgh brings them back and they just, they talk things out and they hash things out.
That would be insane.
It could happen.
He winds up going back. He just had a brief stint in Oakland. He goes back to Pittsburgh. Said Jerry Rice maybe for best wide receiver, but still, wasn't that like the Joe Montana?
Yeah, I mean, Steve Young at that time. But we're talking about what is that, 95, 94 when Steve Young won one? I mean, that was a long time ago. A completely different league then too.
The point remains, he's not going to be the best. Is it worth all the headaches nowadays? When look what happened with every team doesn't have a second receiver like Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's just going to, as far as they're going to use him, he's going to plug right in to what they're going to be doing this year.
And I don't see too many people jumping on the Antonio Brown thing like a lot of people would expect,
Yeah.
I don't.
The market might not be what you think it is.
Exactly. It's going to be if LA and Oakland can work something out and maybe swap Gordon and him, I still don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you. But if that happened, it's a maybe, big maybe. I don't know if LA wants to deal with that, and I don't know if Phillip Rivers wants to deal with a receiver demanding and screaming and this and that. I mean, not every quarterback really wants to deal with that. I mean, it's just crazy when you have a wide receiver getting into a physical altercation with his general manager in practice in front of everybody. Yeah,
what kind of what is this whole story like? And then I said earlier, he's stacking. It's easy to defend him if it's just a Pittsburgh thing, or if it's just a foot thing, or if it's just the helmet thing, or if it's just this. But it's if everything is stacked on top of each other, Phillip Rivers. Look how he yells at his other.
Yeah, exactly.
I have to run out of here in 5 minutes or so. Did you want to just do a couple minutes on the game tonight? If you guys want to keep going after I leave. But as far as picks today, are you going with Bears? And then going forward in the future, we can talk about it more off air. But I was talking about doing I covered college a little bit earlier. But obviously, you guys can do whatever you want. But I was kind of talking about doing maybe a fantasy segment, not on like this short notice, but like fantasy, college, like what's happened. We only do it once a week, so what happened before, what's going to happen for both things, and then maybe a gambling thing. But as far as tonight goes, it's Chicago at home giving up 3. You're not too much of like a betting man, more on fantasy than you are on like regular games. But how are you feeling about this game tonight?
Well, I definitely think one thing to look out for this year is Green Bay's defense. And a lot of people aren't talking about it. They've spent the past couple of years putting a lot of draft picks in that defense. I think some people really need to look at this upcoming year. Green Bay's defense is going to be better, I think. But when I heard Khalil Mack and they said, hey, what do you feel about the game? He said, I'm so fucking ready. I mean, for him to say that and you just know the rest of the defense is like that, it's just, I think the Bears will take this game. I think it's going to be a very, very tough game. It's obviously going to be a Bears-Packers. It's going to be a great rivalry game. It's a great way to open the season up. But, I mean, I will see it being a close game. I see the Bears pulling away with a close one. And then, I see these teams splitting their series. I would love to see what happens tonight, but I do think the whole goal is get after Aaron Rodgers, beat up Aaron Rodgers, and get there.
It's similar. It's the same game that we started with last year, though, and then everything came out looking good with Khalil Mack, which he said he's so fucking ready, and that's good and everything like that. But like, I mean, what do you expect him to say? Like, I'm kind of looking forward to it a little bit.
You just like that kind of. I like that kind of energy.
No, I'm into it too. We're waiting for football. Football is finally back. I'm excited for it too. And I'm taking Green Bay just because I'm getting 3 points and just because it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no, I mean
I can't talk all this shit about how much I like Aaron Rodgers and not
bet on him.
Yeah, I can't not take Aaron Rodgers, but you're only taking it pretty much. It's the Bears' entire team against like Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly.
It's like the logic says the Bears and they're at home. And all that kind of stuff.
I'm excited to watch David Montgomery as a rookie, see what he looks like, what's the workload he's going to get, see if Allen Hurns as well. I mean, Allen Hurns is a guy that has to kind of get a bounce back. It looks like last year was after he got back from his injury, now he's 2 years out from his injury, and he's going to be more effective in the offense, I would feel like, this year. And, Trubisky, what's Trubisky look like this year? Because this is a year where we're going to look at, is he going to get paid at the end of this year? I mean, that's the quarterback. That's going to be a question for him coming up, and we just saw what Goff got paid. I'm pissed off about that because now Dak has more leverage to get paid whatever amount he wants.
I was saying with the Zeke contract too, it's like, okay, so you're signing Zeke and you're signing all these other guys before you sign Dak. You think Dak's not going to look good this year? Like, once Dak has all these guys around him, he looks good this year. You're not going to know if it's because he's actually good or it's because he has everyone.
That's been his career too, though.
So you're going to have to pay him no matter what.
I mean, that's just, even when he entered his rookie year, I mean, we're looking at it, and you look at his rookie year, he only lost 2 games, both to New York, and it was just like, if had been, we lost 3 games. Our last game of the year, we lost to Philly that year as well, with nobody playing really. It was the end of the year, we already clinched type of game theme.
So I got just a couple of minutes left. Maybe just for fun, like you guys can talk about whatever you want as soon as I leave, however long you want to continue on. I'm just going to run down the games real quick, and I'll tell you the teams, the spread, and then you just say, bam, this is who I'm taking.
Yeah.
And the second team will be at home, and I'll tell you the spread. So you said you're going to take Chicago minus the 3 at home. Cleveland against Tennessee. Cleveland at home -5.
I'll take Cleveland on that one.
Atlanta at Minnesota. Minnesota -3.5.
I'll take it.
It's tough.
Oh, that's a tough game right there.
Yeah.
I'll take Atlanta on that one.
Yeah. Plus the 3.5. I mean, you get the half.
Atlanta's defense is healthy this time around, so let's see what they look like coming in.
Buffalo at Jets. Jets -2.5. Really? Okay.
Yeah,
that
like
was
the Jets
pretty.
on that one.
That was a quick one. That was pretty easy.
I just feel like Buffalo has a lot more to still figure out going through. They just lost Shady, and they're going to have to still go. Like, they have to figure themselves out identify-wise with their
I was just
offenses.
saying, my whole thing about the Bills is last year, whatever games they did win, Josh Allen kind of took people by surprise as far as like, okay, we didn't know this guy could run.
Yeah.
Nobody at the combine said, oh, Josh Allen's like
nobody
a
thought
mobile
he'd run
quarterback.
for 600 yards.
Jets, I think, are going to have a decent defense, so I'm with you on that one. Washington at Philadelphia. Philadelphia's -10.
I'll take Philly in that one.
Giving up the 10 points. Rams at Panthers. Rams -2.
Yeah, I can take the Rams in that. Yeah, I'll go with the Rams in that one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's early in the year. Everyone, they said Gurley's playing.
The travel's not as big of a deal because it's early in the season. Kansas City at Jacksonville +3. One of the more interesting games. I want
to take Jacksonville in that one, actually.
It's one of those games.
I do.
It's one of those games, right, where Vegas is like, oh, these people are going to say, oh, Kansas City only giving up 3 points. Like, everybody just knows all the offensive power for Kansas City. It's one of those ones where it's like they want you to take Kansas City, so you just take Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And then you get mad because Jacksonville loses by 21.
Yeah. I do want to take Jacksonville now. I want to see Jalen Ramsey is going to shadow Tyreek the whole game this game.
That's the
which we don't see him do a lot of, but now with him getting his a fourth year, I think it'd be exciting.
That was one of the matchups I was most excited about. The Jacksonville linebackers against
Josh Allen,
Kelsey.
man, potential defensive rookie of the year. I want to see how he looks as well.
Yeah, and then of course you're gonna have Jalen Ramsey against Tyreek.
And then I want to see this Kansas City defense because they added some pieces to it. So let's see what they can look like coming in.
If they can just not allow 35 points a game, they're gonna be in every single game.
Keep a pass rush and keep them on their toes.
But the Jalen Ramsey Tyreek Hill thing, and we're supposed to go through real quick, but I don't really care. But the whole thing about that is Jalen Ramsey likes to play physical, and then you have Tyreek Hill. So if you get beat off the line, you're gonna need to catch back up pretty quick. Indianapolis at the Chargers. Chargers are -6.
I like the Chargers in that one. I think the Chargers should come out pretty aggressive in that one.
Cincinnati at Seattle. Seattle -9.
Yeah.
It didn't matter how many. Didn't matter how many points it was.
Dude, Cincinnati just looks like a mess right now.
Yeah, possibly a candidate for the worst team in the league. Giants at Cowboys. Cowboys -7.5.
I'll take the Cowboys in that one still.
Okay.
I will.
Detroit.
We should. I mean, I feel like we should win that game.
Yeah, I just felt like it was a divisional game. It could be close.
It could be definitely a closer game.
Detroit at Arizona, a game nobody wants to watch, not even me. Arizona's +2.5.
I'll take Detroit.
Yeah, I don't know. Who cares?
They have more to work with than Arizona really does.
Yeah, I'm just excited to watch Kyler. That's the only reason I would be excited to watch that game.
Not even his own team, just Kyler.
Yeah, no, I don't want to watch my team at all. San Francisco at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay -1. So not even Vegas really knew what to do with that game. Just like, yeah, Tampa Bay's at home. Give them a point. Who cares?
Let's take San Francisco on that one.
Yeah.
Let's take San Francisco on that.
Same thing with the travel. I don't think it's as big of a deal in week 1. They've had all this time to
prepare. They don't
have
have this tremendous defense, so I do want to see if I'm not a Jimmy Garoppolo fan, I've made clear, but let's see what it looks like.
To me, the game that should have been the Thursday night game, they usually give it to the Super Bowl champ, but I don't know, whatever it is. Pittsburgh at New England. New England -5.5.
That's going to be a fun game. That's a tough one, man, because that's really tough.
5.5 is right in that zone, too, where it's like...
I'll take Pittsburgh, man. I think that can be a 3-point game.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I could also... Yeah, we'll see. New England usually beats Pittsburgh.
I think New England will win,
yeah.
but I think it'll be closer. Yeah, I think it's going to be closer than that.
Could be like 24-21.
Yeah,
could be
exactly.
Like 26,
first
whatever.
game of the year. And plus, New England always looks a little shaky the first 3 games of the year anyways.
Houston at New Orleans. New Orleans giving up 6.5.
I'm going New Orleans.
Yeah.
New Orleans defense is going to be pretty solid this year as well.
I think Houston defense could be pretty good too, but that's one of the best home field advantages in the sport. Most of them are worth 3. I think that one's worth like 4.5. Especially in the first game of the year. Like, people have been waiting, like I said, for football. Broncos at Raiders. Broncos -2.5.
I'm taking the Broncos in this one.
Especially after this whole Antonio Brown, this weird thing. We don't know what's going to happen with that whole thing. But the Broncos defense is going to be nasty. Even I know it's preseason, but watching them in preseason, they were just destroying people.
Oh, man, their defense looks back to being top tier, and I do think but Emmanuel Sanders healthy, Cortland Sutton. I mean, you got some. Flacco has more weapons to throw to than he's ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, this looks like if Phillip Lindsay's back there, I think this is going to be Flacco's best offense he could ever work with. And this is really to prove, is Flacco really, is he he's not a premier quarterback by any means, nor is he a top 10 quarterback.
It's kind of his last chance to prove, am I a quarterback that's going to be
can I stay in this league for a little bit longer is really what it is. And I think this is the best team to do that with.
Good to see you, man. I'm excited for football tonight. No, it's all good. I gotta work at 4:45, so I'm gonna rush over there. Thank you guys for watching. You guys do your thing.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay. You know what? Glad to see Zeke is signed. Glad Zeke's there. You know what? People hate the deal. It's okay. We got him.
We'll see you guys next week then. I appreciate it. Bundesliga.